right now on Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks. Hi, everyone. Alexis Brooks here from Higher Journeys. So glad that you could join us today. Well, I have to say that I am still a little emotional, maybe a little bit more than a little, about the conversation that we just wrapped up on our latest episode, what you're about to see, with none other than Reverend Michael J.S. Carter. You all that have been watching the channel for some time, I'm sure know Michael's great work, not only having been on our show several times, he's also one of the original cast members for the show Ancient Aliens. So delighted to have him on today, because we're talking about a subject that I know is near and dear to many of the journeyers out there, many people out there who are now coming forward wanting to dig in more to their own very, very nebulous and bizarre contact encounters. Yes, ET contact encounters. You always have to take a deep breath before you even approach a conversation like this, because there is such a broad spectrum of dimensions, literally as well as figuratively, as to what may be going on. I'm emotional because Michael, in our talk you'll soon see, broke down after being so incredibly courageous and transparent in sharing his initial set of experiences. He's been an experiencer, I always put in quotes, recalled experience since 1989, and he's going to share that experience with you. So many feelings still, I think, unresolved with Michael, as well as many people that are trying to reconcile not just the validity of the experience, but the purpose of the experience, the context of the experience. Where are we going here? I am doing this show for everybody out there who feel that they're having experiences and do not know what to do with them. This is a very important show, I think, to do at this time, because I am hearing from more of you that are looking for answers as to what the heck is going on with their own encounters, whether benevolent or not so friendly. At least that's how they're perceived. Anyway, let's get on with the show. I know you're going to love it. And I do want to remind you, if you don't know already, that we do have a Patreon after show, and we're going to take the conversation even deeper over there. We got a lot of goodies going on for you with this particular episode with Michael. So without further ado, let's get to the show. My interview with experiencer Michael J.S. Carter. Reverend Michael J.S. Carter. What a pleasure and an honor always to have you grace our presence. Michael and I were just talking offline, journeyers, and I said to him, now, look, this is a big show because we're going to be talking about the experiencer, do I call it syndrome? I don't know what to call it, but the intensity and the urgency of people who have had, continue to have contact encounters. I don't know about you, Michael, but they've been coming to me lately in droves, wanting to talk, wanting to understand, wanting resolution. And so, journeyers, I thought that this would be the time like no other to have Reverend Carter on to give us his take on the experience. He is an experiencer. He's been very transparent about it, although he doesn't talk about that on Ancient Aliens. He is sort of in another capacity there, but he's going to talk about it here. We're here for you. I want you to know that first and foremost. Michael, welcome back, sir. How you doing?
Oh, Alexis, I've been looking forward to this. I'm doing great. Just doing the parent thing and watching my daughter grow up. Churches, we're at low numbers because of Delta variant, and but we're up and we're moving, and life is good. I can't complain. I'm always happy to talk to you, and I haven't seen you in so long. So thanks for having me on and letting me talk about this.
It's my pleasure.
Oh, I want to say something. You may not remember, but you said a year ago, you said, Michael, I believe that there are people who are having these experiences and they don't even know it.
That's correct.
And we were like, you know what? I mean, I was like, yeah, yeah, but we didn't go into it then because that book wasn't written. And but there are people out here who go, man, am I crazy or did that just happen? So, you know, you put the seed there, um, and that's part of the book, as you know, it's for people not only who've had them, but who think they've had them,
Hmm.
these experiences, or for loved ones who've had it. But I think it's much more, as you said last year, uh, whatever the data is of people who say, I've had these, I think you can put that on steroids.
Agreed. And the book that he's mentioning, folks, is his brand new release that I'm so excited about called Initiation, the Spiritual Transformation of the Experiencer. I put that subtitle in bold. Here I go again, Journeyers, the voice. I don't know what's happening here. I put that in bold, that subtitle, because I think that should be the crux of what we're talking about. Obviously, the contact experience is transformational in and of itself, but it seems to beget an even bigger transformation, readjusting to the world that we know as quote normal. So I want to get into that, but let's, as I say, begin at the beginning. You've told this story before, and I can't recall whether you shared it with our audience or not, but I think even if you did, it would be worth repeating. As an
Sure.
experiencer, I want you to give us the impetus or your initiation into your first, I'm going to say in quotes, recalled
Yeah.
experience that happened
Yeah.
back in 1989 after
Oh my
returning
God.
from a 10-day vacation with your
Oh,
then girlfriend in Mexico.
yes.
Take it away,
Yes.
Michael. Tell the folks what happened to you, if you could give us kind of the condensed version.
Okay. The condensed version is this. Um, we were in Cancun, and we wanted to go to Chichen Itza and Tulum on the Yucatan to see the pyramids and all the Mayan, pyramids and that kind of stuff. And remember, backstory is, I've broken away obviously from my Baptist upbringing, and I'm reading existential philosophy. I mean, I'm doing my journey, but I never watched the Star Trek up until then, and I did not believe in this. And I have to give that backstory. Um, and so we went, and it was wonderful. It was, I just to see the pyramids and just to know about this civilization, very advanced. But that's, there all these civilizations were very advanced. So anyway, we come back to JFK, and my girlfriend Sandy at the time said, I'm going to stay home. It was cold. We got back, it was 85, 90 degrees. I wanted to gloat. And I was nice and coppery, my hair, I wanted to gloat. So some friends had invited me to a get together down in Hell's Kitchen on 46th and 44th and 10th. And so I went. And it was cold, but still, my ego, I just want people to say, ooh, wow, look. So I went, and no adult beverages were served. I had probably too many deviled eggs because that's
I
one of my
know.
vices.
I know.
Woo! And it's worth the bottle of Tums afterwards for me. Anyway, so I came back home, and I was there about 90 minutes. And to this day, I don't know whether I, had to get up and go to the bathroom or whatever, but I sleep on my stomach, which I know is not the best. And I turned around, and there was a being at the foot of my bed. And I can't tell you the fear, okay? I mean, and Sandy could not wake up. And since I've written a book and talked about this, she has since recalled, she has said, Michael, I remember there were these shadowy beings in the room with these big heads. She said, but that's all I remember. And she said, I just felt like I just had to go to sleep. But anyway, this being was about maybe 4 feet tall. The jumpsuit, it was a jumpsuit, and it looked like Reynolds wrap. I remember that. And this is the 15th floor of the Excelsior Hotel, which is still there on the Upper West Side, 45 West 81st Street, between Columbus Avenue and the Park, right across the street from um, the planetarium. So it wasn't in some rural little area. This was in a crowded city. And I, I was just so scared. And the being had was chalk white with the big bulbous head and those eyes, and real thin. And behind him or her was this individual, I don't know what sex it was a cobalt, like a deep blue, almost like the blue of my book. And outside of that was white. My whole apartment, our whole apartment, it was lit up like Times Square. And I've gotten a fetal position, and I pulled the covers up over my head. Sandy didn't budge.
She was asleep, so she stayed
Yeah.
asleep.
Yeah. She said a couple weeks ago when the book came out, she said, I remember it. Now, she said, I saw these shadowy beings, but there was something in my head that just said, go to sleep.
So she saw them. How did she see them if she was asleep?
She said that when I got up, she felt me moving around. And she said, I saw these shadowy beings with these heads, but the normal reaction would be probably like I did, to sit up on your bed. She went to sleep, which is not a normal reaction.
Well, you hear this a lot, actually, where the partner
Not unless they put something on her to say, why don't you just, this is not for you. I don't know. But she said, I saw, but she said I couldn't do anything but go to sleep. So I pull the covers up over my head, and I hear this whoosh, like this wind whoosh, blowing, and the temperature has changed in the room, and I think I'm outside. I think I'm outside. It's like it's freezing. When I pull my covers down, near a dog barked. It was like nothing ever happened. And when she got up and she said, I remember you, she said, I've never seen you so afraid. And that was December 28th, 1989. And then, that's just the truncated version. They kept coming twice a month, every full and new moon.
You mentioned
for about 8 months or 12. And it was interesting because Sandy worked at night. She had she was an entertainer, so her club dates were at night. And so they would come almost a good year. And in between that time, I had seen them. I mean, they weren't gray, they were chalk white, but we wouldn't call them. The phenotype was like, and I saw reptilians on 2 occasions. And only later on, when I moved here, did I see the Nordic brother and that the Arcturian, the blue person, and the praying mantis. But in there, because it was interesting, when I talked to my friends in Europe, when I was telling them about this, they said, oh, we don't really see them. We see the blonde, blue-eyed people. I said, well, I don't see them over here. And then, of course, years later, I did. They were the ones who healed my blood clot.
Right. We're going to get into that. Yeah. We're going to get into that.
They hooked that up really nicely.
That's a fabulous story. Here's a question I have for you. Well, let's stay on the 1989 experience, because I'm calling this your first recalled experience.
Yeah.
Do you feel, Michael, now look at where you had just come from, not just Mexico, but the Mayan pyramids. Do you feel, have you ever explored the thought that something may have happened while you were in the proximity of that very powerful area, even subliminally?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that?
I thought about that. Pardon me, Alexis, with this type of material and with this, anything is possible. All I know is that things that I never even thought about, I started thinking, I started changing. Physiologically, my hair grew faster, my nails grew faster. I got by on less sleep. Something was softened in me. I was more willing to be vulnerable. There was a depth to me. Now, that wasn't like I wasn't working towards that before, but before this happened, I was an actor in New York. You know how that goes. I was drinking and sexing and drugging, and I was having a grand time. And then this happened, and the brakes got put on. And I had several other times where not anything like this, where, life was warning me, you're going to do something stupid to yourself if you're going to keep partying like this. But this put the brakes on, and no one ever said to me, you shouldn't be doing this. It was that it just gradually came to me like, is this what you really want to do? Is this what you really think you're here for? And I jokingly say to my friends, I went to New York thinking I was going to be Denzel Washington, mm-hmm. and I wound up going to seminary, even though in some ways that was not totally unexpected, mm-hmm. but my whole life changed. But I saw my experience as positive overall. And that's when I met Bud and John Mack
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because I know that there's a lot of moving parts to your story. Let's talk about Bud, because I want to get into the merits of therapy, of hypnotherapy. Tell us, how many times did you meet with him?
I met
Bud
with
Hopkins,
Bud
by the way.
Twice, and I met with Gene Mundy the first time. I met with her twice. Gene Mundy, I found her name in a book called Encounters by Dr. Edith Fiore. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in the back of the book, there's all these folk all over the country who were doing mental health stuff, and they were working with experiencers. And it was a woman named Aphrodite Claymore, and there was Gene Mundy. And it was my bias. I was in such bad shape mentally that someone named Aphrodite, I know is the Greek goddess, I just couldn't handle that. It just didn't seem grounded enough for me. And I hear she's wonderful at what she does, but where I was, I needed to be grounded. So it was Dr. Gene Mundy. She had an office in Long Island and one on East 13th Street in the Village. Mm-hmm. I went there. I still have the cassette tapes back there of me screaming at the top of my lungs. But
wow,
during the regression, she let me know that I wasn't crazy, which I thought I was. I was not sleeping. I still have some post-traumatic stress. I'm better, but I still have to wait. I still have to wait before I'm ready to go to sleep, before I turn the lights out. Mm-hmm. My daughter sleeps with her blinds open. For some reason, that bothers me. And so I keep my blinds closed as if that's going to keep them from coming. But it does give me, but probably about 2-3 years ago, I just started being able to I would keep the light on before I turn, I'm at alpha, beta, I'm going to go to sleep, let me turn it off. Because for me, they appear in my room. It's the bizarreness of how these folk look.
Yeah.
But it's also, they're there. It's like if I could be looking here, and let's say I turn over and they're like there, and my heart feels like it's going to come out of that's what gets me. And I can't get around that. When you go to bed tonight, all of a sudden I transport myself into your room. I look like a human, but your doors are locked. How the hell did you, you know what I mean? Your nervous system gets.
Absolutely.
I was flooded.
You're bringing up, you're going to the heart of the matter, man. And I'm so glad you are. I want everyone who is listening, and I know there are people watching right now, Michael, that are nodding their head going, yes, oh my God, me too. This is so important that we share that we are not having these experiences in isolation. There are a variation, but the general consensus is the same. Holy shit, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about, I want to get into because I think regression therapy is something that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, but I want to get your thoughts on. Give us a little summary of what happened let's go to Bud, and then I want to ask you about your thoughts on regression therapy. Okay, what happened?
Bud was great for me, and Gene Mundy was great as well. But I had never been to Bud, and remember, because people will say, well, Michael, these hypnotherapists are in a book on experiencers. Mm-hmm. So as if that would be kind of like an advantage or what, ever. But I wanted to go to someone who kind of knew.
Right.
Bud, I had never been to. Bud and I saw the world very differently, but we were good friends, I'd like to think, because he would invite me by and that kind of thing. But Bud thought that this was no good, that these folks that were up to
I
something,
know.
and I was more in John Mack's camp. And the thing with Bud is that, to my recollection, Bud never asked me a leading question. Bud just went with me as the living data in front of him. And and I went really deep with Bud. And he was the one who came up with, we touched on it with Gene Mundy, but that time that I was out, that I thought I was outside, I was outside. I was on their ship. I was outside. But
This
I
is
had no
another experience, though. This is another encounter,
no,
correct?
remember the original encounter when I said I heard that wind blowing and I got in the fetal position and the temperature changed? He said the
Okay.
temperature change was because you did go outside.
I see. Okay. I
See, I
always,
never even thought of that. I
so
never even thought of that. Because people say, well, did they tell you something? Did they talk to you? For me, I'm so busy trying to heal this shattered reality. I'm not even thinking about, well, where are you from? What's your name? How'd you get here? I'm on survival because it's high strangeness. And I know there are some people who have the presence of mind, or maybe the star people calm, don't get weird, just calm down. We're not going to hurt. Maybe they had that. I don't recall that. And so I was just in survival. And then when they kept coming, but that was the thing with Bud. Bud, I knew where Bud stood before I went under with Bud,
mhm.
but none of that came up. It wasn't, in my recollection. He wasn't leading me. Was this a bad thing? None of that. He was very professional. He was very professional. And I woke up from there like I did with Gene Mundy to a degree. I felt cleansed. It was like peeling the onion more, a little more, a little more. And I want to be clear, there are folk, as you and I know, who didn't have my experience. Some people had it even more than me, where it wasn't fear. It was, okay, but I know there are people who had sperm taken, ovum taken, anal probe. I believe that's real. And I'm not saying that didn't happen. I know it's happened with some folk, and I met them in Bud's group. But what I am saying, because it's very human, that we paint everybody with a broad brush.
Mhm.
And I'm saying that my experiences, even though 20 some years later, I still got a little twitches and whatnot, that I felt that my life got better, my spirituality was accelerated, even though I was already on that path. And that overall, outside of the birth of my daughter, it's the most important thing that's happened in my life.
But it took you a long time to get there. It sounds like this. You talk about
It took me
peeling
some
the
years to get
layers, peeling the layers off of the onion. And
yeah.
this is what I want, Michael, our audience that find this conversation applicable to their own lives, to understand that there is no, I'm glad you said one size fits all. This cannot be painted with a broad brush. And yes, there are some common threads. Let me ask you about this. When it comes to hypnotherapy, based on your experience and others that you've talked to, or regression therapy, I should say, with all of the people that are grappling with something weird going on in their lives, is this something, regression therapy, that you would recommend
I would. I would.
to everyone? Or are there certain types of people that wouldn't benefit and it could hurt? I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it could. I think that you have to be prepared, um, pardon me, that you got to say whatever comes up, I need to deal with. You got to be prepared to do that, because if you're not prepared to do it, you don't want to do it, because now you've opened up a box and you can't put the lid back on.
That's right.
So I would say, I would refer, people ask me, and I put a couple names in the book, but if I know, so I know some people who do past life regression, something where you can be relaxed and, go to a different state of consciousness. You trust that person. They know what they're doing. I think that can be healing because your sanity's on the line. I mean, I thought I was crazy, and the hits just kept on coming, and I wasn't sleeping, and
Right.
it was catching up with me. I started healing after that, playing with all these energies, because I like that, and it was great. My life was changing, but you got to sleep.
You have to sleep or else you
You
can't
got to
function.
eat. Yeah, you have to function, and you have to. I had to go to work, and I was, who are you going to talk to about this? I'm not going to talk to my church about it
Well, I want to talk about that because at some
because
point it
they
came.
told me,
Yeah. Tell us what
you
happened.
know,
Tell us what happened there.
oh, boy, you're bringing up some stuff for me.
Sorry. It's for the journeyers. It's the thank you for this, by the way.
So anyway, I was telling a friend of mine, I was going to Boston to do some anti-racism training. And I remember, I won't mention her name. She had a purple Jeep, and we were riding, and it was. I said, I've never seen a purple Jeep, and I felt close to her. She was a minister, a good friend, and I told her what happened, and and she said to me, Michael, I believe that's possible. She said, but if you ever want to have a career in this denomination, you must never tell that story again. And so I didn't. And then when I got this gig, when I'm serving this congregation here now, this was several years ago though, there was a woman there and she's very difficult. And we've healed a little bit. I just saw her a couple of weeks ago. But she wanted me fired because she said I turned on the TV and my pastor's talking about little green men, which that's not what I was talking about. And she said she was embarrassed about it. And she was giving much money to the church. So I didn't know which way this was going to go. And we met, my board, and she came in and I tried to talk to her. And luckily they stood up for me. They said, A, he doesn't preach it from the pulpit. So he's not forcing this on us or you. And he may be right. But I don't understand why we need to go to this extreme. So I will always thank them for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my livelihood. She was trying to get me fired. But I'm a little emotional. I just never thought. I mean, I thought I had healed some of that, but obviously, some of that's still there. But anyway,
Thank you. I hope I
so
didn't put you on the spot.
no, it's okay. I just didn't know where that came from. I thought that was pretty much out. Um,
Well, can I stop you? Take a breath for a minute. I want you to take a breath. Take a little time out so I can say, because I'm going to start getting emotional because this is an emotional issue. This is why I felt intuitively it was time to have this kind of a conversation in this depth, because I know, as sure as I'm sitting here and looking at this camera, that many of you that are listening don't know what to do, and you don't know how needed and necessary you are, Michael, to be able to, at a minimum, let people know. They say misery loves company. We're not talking about misery. We're talking about the ability to relate. You are helping enormously.
Thank you.
I love
Yeah.
you, by the way. I love you. I'm going to stop. I love you. I'm sending you a hug.
Oh,
We're both
well,
kind of on the edge of tears today.
it's mutual. Yeah, no, I haven't had this reaction. I remember I try to be composed, even if I do memorial services, whatever. Not that I'm in touch with my feelings, but we're doing a radio show. But I remember when I went to Bud's and Bud had me get up in front of these people, and most of them did not. I mean, I told them I would. They didn't have my experience, but they listened, and I thought I was kind of over it, and I started crying in front of them. So it just brought me back. Like, where did that come from? But anyway, yeah, like I said, I mean, I wouldn't trade it. My outside of my daughter's thing coming into the world, this is up there. But I do, the thing I think that people, you have to integrate. You got to go back to work. If you're in a relationship, you got to deal with your spouse, your lover, your husband. You've got to function on this planet, even though part of you is in another worldly place. It's the same thing with people who have NDEs or OBE. If you haven't had that experience, it's hard to get people to kind of know. And so I bring this up with very few people. It's kind of open secret. I mean, here we are. And plus now it's so integrated, I don't have to talk about it. I know some people that's all they can talk about, and it's kind of ruined our friendship because there's other things in life.
Absolutely. Agreed.
But the big thing is to, my daughter, let me tell you something. I told you this, I'll tell you this now. I'm not going to bring her too much into this because she's got her own private life. She's 15. But I may have told you this. About a year ago, I would take you around my apartment, but anyway, it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. My daughter got up. I got up one morning and my daughter said to me, "Daddy, where'd you go last night?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "I got up around 3 o'clock, which is when most of between 3 and 4:30, 3 and 5, but mostly around 3. I wake up at 3:15 anyway. I don't know whether that's a conditioned response or whatever."
Common, very common.
Yeah. And she said, I walked around the house and you weren't here. I said, "Sweetheart, I'd never leave you here by yourself." She said, "Well, I came in here. There was a light shining through the window. There was a light shining through the window in your bedroom." And she said, "And your bedclothes were just pulled back and folded." And I said, "Kevin, I swear to God, baby, I would not do that." And she said, "Well, I don't know. I thought I saw the full moon." And then dawn, I said, "Kevin, there was no full moon last night. There was no full moon last night." Mm-hmm. And she said, "Then did your friends come?" I said, "I guess so." And then we just left it.
Just as you were saying that, a blue jay came right to my windowsill.
Okay.
A blue jay. Nice. Blue.
Yes.
Okay. You've told me that story before. We just talked about it not that long ago. Getting back to the response to the things that you're discovering or happening, still discovering and still trying to process. The idea of feeling out of control has got to play such a big part that I know many people can relate to. How big of a part did that play for you? We are living at a time of great challenge and incredible opportunity. A time when taking life into our own hands, charting our own course, and finding our own answers is more accessible than ever before. During this time, you may be asking yourself, what am I called to do? What if I could discover not only my own inner healing power, but help others all over this planet discover theirs? We all have the ability to heal ourselves, but it takes a special approach, a unique approach. Quantum healing hypnosis technique, also known as QHHT, a method developed by pioneering hypnotherapist and past life regression expert Dolores Cannon, is the approach that thousands have used and taught to access the deeper aspect of the self for healing at the core level. We all have the ability to tap into the higher self, the oversoul, the higher consciousness, and we have the means to help others to do the same. QHHT is designed to help the individual access the subconscious, the storehouse of all information, through visualization at the deepest level imaginable, a process that Dolores Cannon discovered and refined during her decades of working with individuals from around the globe. Training with QHHT will provide the guidance and give you the tools to help others tap that incredible force within. Now, you can access this exclusive training online, bringing the tools needed right to you so you can assist others in finding their own answers and achieve total healing. This is powerful and needed now more than ever. Be a part of the pioneering work and legacy of Dolores Cannon by learning QHHT. Start today by clicking on the link in the description of this show to get started. And when you do, don't forget to mention Higher Journeys to get a 10% course discount when you sign up. It's time we all take back control of our lives and chart the course for success at every level. It's time to discover the power of quantum healing hypnosis technique by helping others to help themselves. And by doing this, we are helping to heal the world.
Listen, I was between that and my church work, dealing with death and dealing I was putting away quite a bit of alcohol. And I wasn't even aware of it until at that time, my then-time father-in-law, in a nice way, because meanwhile I'm drinking scotch with him, but he said, who's helping you? And he was very subtle in a way. We were sitting drinking scotch, but he didn't know about this. But yeah, it was out of control. I needed to calm down. I needed to be centered. But I did the meditations. That helped. I was intentional about that. I had some support. I started meeting people who either had that experience or knew people who did. The right book came my way. The right person came my way, but it was part of the path. And then some years would go by and I wouldn't hear from them at all. Maybe in a dream I'd see him, or maybe in my meditation. It's that kind of, the very thing you're fearing is the very thing you're longing for. And I missed them. And then a friend of mine said to me, you got a lot going on in your life right now. That could be a distraction. And I thought, you're right. But I also felt that they nudged me on the path I needed to go, and I was doing what I needed to do, and they were like, he'll find his way for now. Just leave him alone for a minute. That's how I felt. Because there were at least 2.5 years, because when I saw them. Like they touched me. It wasn't like, I was in this meditative thing. No, they were in my
physically.
home.
Physically.
Yes.
Let me ask you a question, and this is really more or less surface.
And they would walk through the wall.
That's what I was going to ask you.
They would walk right through, and I'm telling you, that is a heart stopper. When you're home by yourself and you're trying to get some rest, I don't know. I used to get insulted when people say, well, why didn't you ask them where they were from? What's happening in the world? Somebody just walked through my wall, man, and told me, don't be afraid, which is easy for them to say. And they look weird to me. Now, I love them, but they're not all, they look a little different.
A little.
They look different.
You said something to me a couple of years ago, I think at this point, when in one case you were describing their movement, almost like a gliding, but very, very odd. And I think I said back to you, I'll never forget Billy Carson, a fellow colleague. This is not the crux of his work, but when I believe it was the first show he did with me on my show, I asked him to tell his story, and he did, and he broke down in tears. When he started recalling him sitting in his living room, these two beings walked through a wall and glided toward him.
And all of a sudden, the room turned into this purple haze, so this lavender/purple haze. And I thought it was a prank. I thought my kids were playing a prank on me or something. So I turned around and looked upstairs to my left, over my left shoulder, to tell my son, what are you doing? Stop it or whatever. And nobody was there. When I turned my head back around, two gray aliens were right in front of my face, within inches of my face. And I was horrified. They had these very dangly arms that looked very weak, and their face were these big, huge almond eyes, but it had this web pattern over the black part of the almonds. This was the weirdest part of the whole thing. They really didn't walk. Let's get a little choked up now because it's so weird,
Yeah, then take your time. Take your time.
Yeah, they really don't walk. They kind of dangle. It's very strange how they move. It's not a gait like a human gait where you would walk, heel toe.
Mm-hmm.
They really kind of dangled, almost like if we were on the moon and we had less gravity or something. I don't know. It's very strange. It was almost a dangle, and they literally just walked right through the wall.
Yeah, they don't walk.
It was at that point. It was at that point that he broke down.
Just the feet are just above. It's weird.
It's very weird. I've heard this before. You'd have to see. I have not. I don't believe that my set of experiences have the same criteria.
But you haven't been regressed.
But I have Mary Rodwell. Well, that's another story for another day.
Okay.
Not a full-on regression in the way that you're discussing.
Yeah, I'm telling you, there's stuff that will come up that you have.
I'm sure.
Where did that come from?
When did you discover that? Let's go back a little bit because there's so many little big areas I want to go to. When you were feeling the whoosh and the cold and discovered that indeed you were taken on board. At what point did you realize, was it obviously a regression? With whom was it with?
Yeah, I didn't realize it for years until Bud.
For years later.
I'm sorry, we touched on it a little bit with Dr. Mundy, because I said I was on a table and there were folk around me and they were kind of touching, nothing invasive, and all these, they were like looking at me like I was, but there was, when I did calm down, there was a familiarity to them. Like, don't you remember us? Nobody said that.
But you felt it.
But they, it's like, don't get weird. You know us, just chill. But I don't remember that, how many lifetimes ago that was. And so, but Bud and I went deep into it. And I remember it was a cold, it was sterile-like, and it was no corners. That I remember. That when I was looking up, it was like, it was big. And, I just lost my train of thought. It was big. And there was, like, there's no, you're like, well, like right here, there's a light shining down. I didn't see any. I was like, well, how is this room lit? How is this? There are no windows. How is there a light in here? I mean, you just think about that. I didn't dwell on that. But I'm trying to take in the sights. I'm trying to take in who these folk are. And the whole time, I wish I could play you the tape, I was just screaming. I would be embarrassed, but yeah, just screaming. What are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, but when I left Bud, when I walked out of his place on West 16th Street, I just felt, it was almost like when you go to you go to a Native American
sweat lodge. Yeah.
Yeah. And you come out and you are, I needed to get that out.
How many times did you go? Because this isn't a one-shot deal.
I went to Bud twice, and I went to Dr. Gene Mundy twice. And after that, I was in the regular therapy because my family of origin stuff, there was codependency and that kind of stuff. So I went to a guy who was a trained therapist. He was a student of A Course in Miracles. Well, that was his spiritual path. And he was a trained Gestalt therapist, which I needed because I get with your feelings. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I told him about it, and he didn't blink. He just said, okay, just talk about that. See, that's what I needed. Mm-hmm. I needed, they call it in chaplaincy, a non-anxious presence. Like if I walk into a room and the patient is dying and the family is around and they're going through their thing, non-anxious is that if I get anxious, it heightens the whole.
Absolutely.
So they call it a non-anxious presence. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was used to being as a chaplain. But see, then I was in control.
That's right.
Death was in control, but I was in control as far as this situation. But I wasn't in control. And so
we go back to, that's what we were talking about, not being in control.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I was going with that.
And that's fair. I mean, I've had a cop put a gun to my head. I have had, when I was living in a certain neighborhood in Baltimore, when we were living in projects, I had a brother pull a gun on me. In New York, I had someone rob me, pulled a gun on me. And I did not have the fear of that. The cop thing I did. But I have never been that out of control, fearful. I mean, it was better than meditation. When that cop put the gun up to my head, colors were brighter, things were calm, you know what I mean? Because you are focused. Well, that's how it was with them, only the fear was just, it overrode that. And I pray to this day, I say, next time I see y'all, which I will, give me something, or just calm me down, or maybe you can tell me you're coming, and then you can see me, my better self, where we could talk. Because this just popping in and out, man.
So you still have not gotten to that point where, that was my next question. Over time, did any of that fear diminish?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, talk about that.
No, it wasn't the terror, but it was, there's still the fear. If I have to close my blinds or whatever, because I feel like I'm being watched, but 100% it has gone down. But it's still there. It's still there. But what healed it quickly, when I say the therapy probably helped me, but even though, like, when I think I told you, when they stuck a needle in my head at one time, that's the only thing I remember them doing that hurt me. But when I looked at my life, how full it was getting, how more human, how more authentic, and having integrity. It got me that aside from you looking like that, or you looking like an alligator with these eyes, outside of that, they never hurt me. They never hurt me. Except that one time when they stuck a needle in my head, and I had to ask them the next time. And I can tell you that story. And they listened to me, because 10 days later, or a week later when they came, they stuck another needle in my head, and I didn't even feel it. It was like, when a nurse takes your blood and you don't even feel it. It's like, oh my, I love that. And yeah, I love that. But yeah, and they never really talked. Only the reptilian talked. He said, "Don't be afraid." But it sounded.
Was it telepathically or was it verbally?
Yeah, telepathically. There's no mouth didn't move. Felt like I had like speakers in my head. And they showed me a past life. The gray people did. The white, well, those people.
We'll call them the grays. It sounds like
they showed me there was a picture of me in a suit that I still have on, that I still have there, a 3-piece suit. I have to admit, it was a very nice looking suit. And they had me with that on. And then, and I was in a pulpit, it was a big church. And then on this, my right side, there was a picture of, and I just knew it was me as a monk with that little haircut where you got the bald there and the bad haircut. And I had the cowl on and a little rope belt. And that answered a lot of questions for me, because I was always into religion. Always.
You were always, okay. So this is a trajectory you were on, that in terms of the monotheistic religion.
Always. But I got away from it. Christianity, as we know, it didn't work for me anymore. And, I got away from all that. But I want to be clear, I was already on that path. And I'm saying this for Christian folk who either think they're demons or, you see, they took them away from our Lord. No, I was already going away from that. But I still use that. I mean, I'm a man of the West. Jesus is my brother. His narrative, that story, you cannot be in the West and not have it touch you in some ways. I have atheists in my congregation, and on every Easter and every Christmas Eve, that church is packed. So there's something in that story that draws you in. But the divisiveness of it, the us versus them of it, of that story, the way it's been handed down, I'm saved, you're not, Jesus is the only way, that doesn't work for me anymore. Right. And so I had to I had to move on. I had to move.
I want to touch on a few more things before we close down for today. I want to talk about people of color that are having encounters and the inhibition. Now, there's inhibition across the board. I don't care what color you are, just by the nature of what we're talking about. But Michael, you and I both know full well, because each of us have had people of color, folk, as we say loosely, come to us and say, oh my God, I'm so happy you're talking about this. I never thought blah, blah, blah. Let's touch on that. Now, again, it depends on the individual, the context, the culture, the environment, the church, obviously, I think has played a big role. But what's your consensus on the added inhibition, and do you think that's lessened? What words would you have to speak to our beautiful brown and black people that are listening and watching today?
I think that we have to broaden our horizons, that everything that you don't understand is not evil or the devil, and that in Aboriginal cultures, whether it was the shaman or the holy elder or whatever, have had contact with these realities. And that we've been fed this story that it's either this or that, and it's either bad or it's good. It's either good or it's evil. Life is more complicated than that, and that the universe is teeming with life, and any God that you can define is not really God. And if you're limiting your God, if you're saying that not only is there no one or nobody else out there, but if they are, they're evil. It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
And maybe Jesus wants you to go to the therapist. Maybe Jesus wants you to go to a support group. Maybe Jesus wants you. I mean, we can't get into it today, but my books are about Jesus probably being a hybrid. And it doesn't take away from his ministry. Actually, it makes more sense to me. But you've got to take that leap. You've got to say, I know this is what I've been taught, and this is strange, but I need to explore this, because you'll find a part of yourself, that you want to get to know.
Mm-hmm. I think.
But we've got to get past this Jesus, not to look at his life as an example, of how to live a committed life. Other ways to do that, but you're limiting yourself to the mysteries, to the fear, to the challenges that will help make you a more integrated person. My sister's evangelical. We don't even talk about this. She's psychic, but I can't even use that word. Michael, no, I have the gift of prophecy. See, you got to say it the right way.
Right. I know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, and I do it, okay, but just open up. It's a beautiful world out here.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. You're bringing up one dimension of a multi-dimensional level of inhibition. That what you just described, I think, is less about inhibition and more about not relenting to what you've been taught by any means at all. I'm not going to relent on my worldview and what I am convicted by and saved by. Okay, that's that. And I understand what you're saying. Now I want you to speak to the individuals, because here's what I'm hearing from folks that are reaching out to me. I'm so relieved, Alexis, that you are talking about such things because of the way you look, or not because of the way you look, but a person of color speaking about these things. I think people are looking for refuge, actually. I think at least the people that I'm hearing from, that's not their sticking point, what you just described. I think it exists still. I think what may be happening is the pushback that they're getting from the people who have that view you're talking about, that very, very orthodox view. And they're trying to figure out how to reconcile, integrate. They've accepted their experiences, many of them, but they're having a problem dealing with one foot in one world, one foot in another. We all are. But we're talking about people of color. What would you say to them from that perspective?
I would say that if you can if you can find a support group, if you can get around some like-minded people, maybe you could start one. Because there's something healing. That's what makes 12 steps so powerful, because those faces are around you. And there's something healing when you see someone else's face and they've shared the same experience. I would say study this as much as you can. Get your books, if you can rent, just study this phenomenon. And see where it's going to lead you. Follow your spiritual path. You may not, you may be going in a totally different direction. And I just want to say this, like I said, I hope that answered a little bit. See, the Black people and brown people that I have talked to, they're dealing one world and this world. Not only are they dealing with the high strangeness of this, but they're also dealing with the pushback from the community. Somehow you're not Black enough. You're not brown enough. This stuff happens to white people. What are you talking about?
I know. That's hard for me to understand, but I know it's still happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the stress. But people have said, like they said to you, I turned on Ancient Aliens. I'm so glad. About time they had a little spice on that show. Or I saw you speaking at here, and people say, can I still be a Christian and believe in UFOs? So they're dealing with not only their community, because that's who you go back to in some way, shape, or form, and the high strangeness of what is happening to me. When it happened to me, I bought every book I could find on this stuff. And I read and I heard about other people's stories, and then I met people. It's like when you open this door, something else comes through. But there's nothing like a group. That's what got me through. I was in a support group for many, many years until it got integrated. And I was in therapy, and I was going to be in therapy anyway, but I also went, for this stuff, because you can still live I think a more integrated life after this. But you've got to allow yourself, you got to walk through the fear.
I hate asking these kinds of questions, but I'm going to put you on the spot and do it anyway.
Sure.
Blessing or curse? Just one word. Has this been a blessing or a curse?
Blessing, no doubt. No doubt.
Hear that, everyone. That's exactly why I wanted you to answer that question. I suppose it's subjective in how you look at it. I want to tell you something that a couple of the journeyers commented on. I've been doing quite a few interviews with folks that have been experiencers, and we had a gentleman on named Kevin Briggs who talked about his incredible experiences, and he's had quite a different type of experience that he interpreted as very good and welcoming and a very different story. And you know what I got from some of the people? I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether they're talking. There are a couple of things going on. I think I want you to comment on this before we close down, which we're going to do shortly.
I got that.
There's a trend going on, it seems. Tell me if you're hearing or seeing this, where I'm getting now. I think what I was hearing, I'm jealous. I don't know whether this has to do with people that have had hellish experiences, or that's how they're interpreting them, and they wished that they had the quality or kind of experience, I shouldn't say quality, but the kind of experience that Kevin articulated, or there are a lot of people that have been coming to me, Michael, saying, they find out what we do, the kind of work we do and the research we do. I wish I could be abducted. I've had more people say that to me in the last, say, year than I've ever heard before. And I wonder where it's coming from. So that jealousy could also be, I want to have an experience like that. Now, I get this strange sense that these people aren't making that statement out of just curiosity. There's a longing to have a deeper and more enriching experience. Speak to that if you would. First of all, have you heard that from people?
Oh, yeah. I heard it from a woman who was kind of hostile, though. I was on a panel in Nashville, and this woman, well, how come they come to you? How come they don't come to me? I do that. And we just kind of dealt with her. I think you have to be careful what you ask for, but I think you said the word. People are hungry. And they're hungry for a more authentic way of being in the world. They want to feel significant. They want to know that they matter. And you said the word. They're looking to transcend. Now, when I was, we do that in our ways, booze, sex, shopping, whatever. But people are seeing that that's not the way.
No.
And so I need something I can hold on to in these times. And I think that that's where that is coming from. And I will remind people that to serve. You want to train because people want to have a more spiritual experience. I know people who've had these experiences. They're not particularly spiritual, and I'm talking about in the hackneyed sense of the word. So you don't want to be giving your power away. Well, they had an experience I didn't. There's something better about them. It's not about that at all. But the thing is, if you want to transcend, just keep saying to yourself and go, I want to be of service. I want to be on the right side of history here. And everything else will come.
Mm-hmm. And if it includes a contact encounter to whatever extent,
whatever gifts you have will be
absolutely
pulled out of you, because your intent is sincere. Whereas some people want it to happen because it makes it prestige. I'm different and you didn't have it, and
no.
I'm a celebrity unto myself.
No. I don't think that's where...
I'm not saying your people.
Yeah. No. I'm just saying in general. I'm getting the sense, Michael, that the people that, at least those that I'm interacting with, that are saying this, that hasn't been a ton, but enough for me to take notice, that these are individuals that are genuinely longing for a more meaningful experience.
Yeah.
Right now.
It will come. I promise you that.
Well, remember when we started this conversation, what did you say to me? Alexis, you said this to me a year ago, that you think that more people are having experiences than realize. Maybe that's part of what's going on, that they're starting to peel their own layer of buried encounters back. And before they get to the point where they realize they are experiencers, they're longing to have an experience as a means to recall an experience I've already had.
And you talk about it all the time on your show. I'll use the word you use. It's consciousness. Their consciousness is changing. You talk about this all the time. When people say that, they're saying, I'm willing to leave what I have here now for something better, possibly. I want to change my consciousness. And again, it can happen from, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, because they're all kind of linked, and contact experiences.
Absolutely.
But people are saying, and living, my consciousness has changed. And so I know it's more to the world than what I'm touching and talking and seeing. And that's what they're longing for. And if you really, really want that, it will come. If you really, really want that sincerely. Because I've always wanted to help. Sometimes I could, I was self-destructive, but ever since I was a kid, I wanted to serve, which is why I said I don't need to be Denzel Washington and an actor anymore. I want to go into this field. Not that there's anything wrong with being Denzel, and I'm sure he helps in his way, but everybody has a different path. And I think that drive to say I want to help my fellow human beings was part of my contact experience.
Well, let me just say this, just to lighten it up a bit. You may not be Denzel Washington, but you are Michael J.S. Carter, starring on the runaway hit series. How's that for a segue? Ancient Aliens. Let's use it as a segue. Ancient Aliens. I'm so excited. Ancient Aliens. We're partners now. Ancient Aliens. All new episodes Friday on the History Channel at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, followed by The Proof is Out There with yours truly, right next to each other. We come on right after Ancient Aliens. So I had to get that in. You are Michael J.S. Carter.
Yes,
Denzel who?
Denzel. I'll give him a call later.
Yeah. I love it. Listen, guys. Okay. You went deeper than I could have ever imagined. I said a prayer right before.
You did.
But I said a prayer even before you and I got on the air. So I said two. And I had a feeling this was going to go somewhere unexpected. So I just want to thank you on behalf of our entire audience for showing us your heart. That's not easy, but you're real. So I'm not surprised, but I know that is it was a very courageous thing to do. So thank you, and know that it was not in vain. I just love you to pieces for that.
And it's right back at you.
I know.
Alexis.
I know. You're my friend. This is a good man.
Yes. My friend.
Grateful to have him in my life. So I wanted to say that. Now, let's get to some fun stuff because we got a couple things. We're not done quite yet. You know what's coming up. You know what's coming up. We're going over to the after show. Of course, we're going to continue this conversation a little bit longer over on Patreon. So please join us. Would you please join us over on Patreon? You know that there's another motive to my madness. Is that the term?
Method to my madness.
Method to my madness. Method to my madness, because we are in campaign mode. This is a little addition for the Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique Scholarship that we are determined to be able to donate to sometime next year. So everybody that joins Patreon will help us in that regard. Got to get that out there. But you also get a heck of a lot of stuff. Not just one thing with Michael, but two. So we're going over to the after show. We're going to continue this conversation. Lord knows where it could go from here. We've gone pretty deep already. But, and this is a big but, I'm so excited. Let me get this book. Hold on. Let me get this book and show everybody. This is a guidebook. This was written for you all out there that are having these encounters. If you thought our conversation was deep and hopefully healing, get this book. It will be for you. But come on over to Patreon, because guess what? We're kicking off the Journeyer Book Club, and I'm so excited. Michael is the first person to sign up. Everybody that comes on over, I believe it is the tier, I don't know if it's a tier 2 or 3 level. If you sign, you're going to get a free copy of this book. And we're going to do a book club around this book, a conversation. And then at a date, probably within about 30 days or so, once everyone has gotten their copy of the book, Michael is going to join us for an author journeyer chat.
Yay.
So I had to get that. Thank you, Michael. I'm so excited.
I'm sending you the cover now, and I will send you the PDF.
Okay, there we go.
Sending it now.
It'll be an ebook version for everybody. So come on over. Well, I think we're going to have the book available by the time you finish listening to this, so you can come on over, sign up unless you're already signed up, because we got quite a nice membership shaping up. Get your copy of the book, start reading it. It's not a long read, but I know that they're going to get a lot out of it. I certainly have. And then we're going to have a chat with Michael, a private chat, a live Q&A where you can speak to him and ask whatever you will. So I think that's it. Oh, and a couple other things, guys. We got a lot going on. HigherJourneys.com is becoming more robust by the day with content that is relevant to what we're talking about here. Michael, you did an excellent article about a year ago, I think, where you went into detail about how you were healed by ETs.
Mm-hmm.
That was written by Michael. That's over on HigherJourneys.com. We have another article that was recently published that has to do with, get this, Michael, repeating numbers as connected to the contact phenomenon. We didn't have time to get into that, but I'm hearing that a lot from people, a lot of you. People are seeing repeating numbers. We've talked about that many times on Higher Journeys, but specifically as it's connected to the contact phenomenon. What's up with that? There's a great post over there, over at higherjourneys.com. So check that out. See if that resonates with you. Leave some comments. I want to hear. This is an ongoing conversation. All of these areas of high strangeness, we're all trying to connect some dots together. So let's do that. All right, Michael, final thoughts. Whew. Again, this was a visceral experience for me and you, I know.
I just didn't think I would go there. But like you said, you say the prayer and you just go where it goes, and you got to trust. And like I said, it feels good that I did that. I just didn't, I didn't know it was going to go there.
Yeah.
I'm just sending you, I got Is this okay? I'm sending you the book.
Okay, we'll talk about that offline. Let's sign off so we can go over to Patreon. The door is opening. I always do that. I always look over here. The door is opening, and yeah, that's where we're going. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's about it. Michael, thank you. Don't hang up. We're going to take a little break, then we're going to move on down the road. We're going to move on down. I'm getting the thoughts right, but that's not, what is it? Ease on down the road.
Ease on down. That's the whiz. Woo!
I love it.
You're going back, baby. You're going back.
Ease on down the road.
Ease on down the road.
Michael J.S. Carter, thank you so much, my dear.
It was fun.
Love you, Journeyers. Hopefully we'll see you over next door.
Thanks, Journeyers. Thanks for showing up.
Talk to you soon. Bye.